if you read the reports and the things that have been said emanating out of Seattle, Pete Carroll, one of his sons is gone. The other one of his sons is a wide receivers coach. Obviously, Russell Wilson reportedly is one of the people who feels like you can't tell them anything. That's not what we've heard about Pete Carroll. We know Pete Carroll to be a national champion as a collegiate coach. We know him to be a Super Bowl champion as a head coach. We know that he knows football, and we know that he's an exceptional coach who's done an exceptional job. But in the same breath, we always assumed that he was a player's coach per se, and that doesn't appear to be the case at this particular juncture. At this particular moment in time, Russell Wilson seems to be turned off by Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks organization. It wasn't an off-the-record comment. His agent literally gave Adam Schefter teams that Russell Wilson would be interested in going to after Russell Wilson had said what he said on the Dan Patrick show. So you take all of those things into consideration. I would say, no, he shouldn't stay there. He's been there for 9 years. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's carried the franchise on his back pretty much for the last 5 years, and we all know this because that's when the Legion of Boom basically was diminishing before our very eyes, and they were on their way out. So when I look at it from that perspective, I say no, he shouldn't want to be there. Russell Wilson should want to go to the Dallas Cowboys.
What?
Quote unquote. I mean, are you ready for this? Yes, the Dallas Cowboys. America's.
You can't say that. You of all people can't say the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, I can once you listen to my reasons. I can say that once you hear my reasons. See, when you have to understand, Max Kellerman. First of all, one thing. I just told you he's a Super Bowl champion. He's got a 98-45-1 record in his 9 seasons. That's more win than the Dallas Cowboys organization has had. I think they've got like 78 wins in that span. He's got 98 wins in the last 9 years, okay? And we also know the cachet that his talents would bring. But it's not even that. It's not even so much that. Max Kellerman, when's the last time the Dallas Cowboys have really been relevant? Quarter century, wouldn't you say?
That level, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. And yet everyone talks about him. We recognize the fact that Forbes magazine had them as the highest valued franchise in the National Football League, if not in all of American sports, at approximately $5 billion. We understand the billion-dollar playpen that is Jerry World, Jerry Jones, and the attention that he garners, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. Let's never forget that. We've got all of that going on in the backdrop of the star, the Dallas Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving, whatever. If you don't deserve any level of relevancy based on your level of production on the football field, and yet still you get it time and time and time again. If you're Russell Wilson, imagine how you imagine how you would stand to benefit. If you were a member of the Dallas Cowboys, you would obviously be in the midst of a marketing machine. You would receive your just due in terms of attention, in terms of cachet, not to mention the nationally televised games. The list goes on and on. You got a beautiful wife in Sierra who's an entertainer extraordinaire, okay? I have no doubt in my mind that all of this noise about Russell Wilson wishing to depart from Seattle has a lot to do with her, as well it should. Happy wife, happy life. Listen to the ladies, okay? Let's make sure we do that. I see it all coming together. If I were Russell Wilson, the ideal place for him to play, because he has nothing to prove. We know he's great, and we know he's going to continue to be great. And as a result of that reality, the bottom line is if you were playing for a team like the Dallas Cowboys with all the unwarranted attention they garner, he would actually make them relevant. He would actually make them, valid in terms of their attention and the notoriety that they receive. And I think that in that regard, that's what makes it a winning situation for him more so than anything else. That's why I mentioned the Dallas Cowboys.
First of all, you have a right to say he shouldn't stay in Dallas, but you do not have a right to say, you don't even have a right to say he should go to Dallas. Saying he shouldn't stay in Seattle, I get for the reasons you outlined. I disagree. I'll get to that in a second. But the Dallas Cowboys, Stephen A., I thought a black cat was running around that franchise. I thought they were cursed. You bring it up. Their record is 20 games worse than Russell Wilson's record, right? But look at the quarterbacks who've played for them. Tony Romo and Dak Prescott. Now, is Russell Wilson better than those guys? Has he been over that time? He has been. To the tune of 2-3 games a season? No. He doesn't give you 2 to 3 games a season better than those guys. What this indicates, Stephen A. Smith, is that he's in a winning situation. He contributes a lot to it for sure. But the Seattle Seahawks are basically a well-run, very well-run franchise, one of the best in football. Had it not been for the Patriots during the course of Russell Wilson's career, they'd be in the argument. They'd certainly be in the argument for the best run team in football. Certainly they are for the best run team in the NFC. So now you want them to go to the Cowboys, perpetually dysfunctional team. Again, the difference in record, you can't just attribute to the quarterback. They've had good quarterbacks. How much of a premium he's going to give? Now, your point about maybe it's Sierra, maybe it's, a career opportunity, legacy in terms of branding after his career. Point well taken. But is that more important to Russell Wilson than becoming great? You know what I think Russell Wilson wants? I think he wants to be the greatest of all time. Russell Wilson is insanely competitive. And if he were in a situation where year in and year out, you're hoping to be above 500, maybe you can win a playoff game, he'll be miserable. He may feel that that's the case in Seattle right now. And maybe in the last couple of years, it has felt that way. Well, they'll get to the playoffs and they'll lose because the O-line isn't good enough, or the O-line gets a little better now, the defense isn't good enough. But this is a double-digit win team year in and year out, and that's not all because of Russell Wilson. It's because it's a well-run franchise. Careful what you wish for. You made more sense last week when you said New Orleans. If Russell Wilson's like, New Orleans, I think they're ready to win now. You put me on that team, it'll get them over the top. I can't really argue. I might say, hey, you got a good thing going in Seattle. You've won a Super Bowl there. You got to another. You may win another one there. You're still in your prime. But I can't really argue against the Saints. But the Cowboys and Stephen A., if he's upset about getting hit too much, that offensive line ain't the same anymore in Dallas. I don't get the Cowboys at all.
Well, that's because you're thinking football, which is what I was thinking when I mentioned the Saints. But clearly something else is going on here. As you've read the continued reports emanating out of Seattle, I mean, let's think about this, Max. They're a perennial playoff team. He's gone to 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl title. He's playing for a coach that's highly respected in Pete Carroll. All right, we've recognized the fact that he's deserved the accolades that he has received, and he's recognized universally as one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League. And oh, by the way, the state of Washington, no state income tax. I mean, listen, there's no reason for him to leave from a football perspective. It makes total sense for him to want to stay. Yet we hear about the relationships. We hear that he wants out. Okay, you see the mayor of New Orleans pitching for him to come there. The mayor of Seattle's like, nah, step back. He's ours, et cetera, et cetera. You got all of this kind of stuff going on. But the Dallas Cowboys were on that list. And if he's on that list, that tells me he's thinking about more than football. It also tells me his wife is playing a pivotal role, as she should. As she should. Okay? So all of those things taken into consideration, I'm thinking from a marketing perspective, clearly he's not satisfied. And he thinks there's a better place to be. In light of that, there's nowhere to go but up, because you'd go to a franchise that hasn't done a damn thing in a quarter century. You're playing with house money.
That's one. What you just point out is legit. That's one. Marketing, the Dallas Cowboys, the brand is huge.
I'm not talking football.
Now let's talk off the field. That's one component off the field. But if another component is being respected, wanting input and all that, look what just happened to Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. Do you think he feels respected right now by this team?
Not at all.
I just don't get Dallas. I get what you're saying about the star, the Cowboys, the brand, but that's the only thing I see in Dallas for Russell Wilson.
Yep. Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago also in the mix as well. We shall see, fellas. Another superstar who's a little frustrated.